This is a game on Fjords in the IS-6, the Tier 8 premium heavy tank. It's a pretty entertaining tank to play. It's not super fast or anything. It's got somewhat trolley armor. The gun is okay, but it's a pretty good brawler, and that's typically how we'll use it. I also want to talk a little about Fjords, particularly from this western spawn on Fjords. You always have an advantage in playing up into this area over here, the north area, the A8, A9 area. So typically what you'll want to do is be able to push through there, because particularly once you get into this area, your artillery can give you support, and they don't really have any direct fire support at all. You don't want to sit back over in this A6 area because the exact opposite is true at that point. So what we'll try to do is we'll try to push up into here, we'll see what they have, and if we can crush them, what we'll do is we'll crush them. And winning the north allows you to play back through this middle area over here, but particularly through this hill right there, which allows you to shoot into the middle. So that's where we're going to head. So we have a T-54 headed out there. Comet is going around the roundabout way as well as the Super Pershing. We've got the IS-3 and a T-71 over here. So we've got 1-9 up here, and most of the rest of our tanks are going down to the south area. So although we don't have a whole lot of fire support out here or in the middle, you still want to be able to play strong through this side if you can, at least to figure out what's there. Our T-54 is playing relatively passively, which is somewhat okay since we don't really have that much support up here. But particularly once this Comet goes in, this T-54 should be there to support them. And you'll notice that I basically just drove straight in. I did not stop. I did not, take a roundabout path. I just went straight there. And so because I drove straight there, I'm closer to the confrontation than this T-54 who waited too long. Although our Comet pushed forward a little bit too aggressively, and I'm not able to, despite the fact that I never stopped and I kept driving forward, I wasn't able to get to save him in time. And so what you want to be able to do, so they basically have us in a situation where they can do 1-2s, right? They got one guy on one side and then they got the Patton on the other. So what we want to be able to do is to be able to split them apart into two groups, right? So that I can use this rock to protect myself from the Patton, and then get shots on this Comet. The Patton is backing up, so I want to move forward so that the Patton can't continue to shoot me, and then ideally take out this Comet. But I take out this Comet rather poorly. And our T-54 still isn't in the game yet. And it takes me an extra shot to kill the Comet. We eventually get it down. So we see that they have 2 9s and an 8 here, which is it's going to be a tall order. We'll have to see whether this T-54 tries to spawn up anything. So if he went around the right side of this rock, he could spot that Patton, and I would be able to get a free shot on him. But he's kind of sitting behind this rock. So I'm trying to figure out what he's going to do. In the meantime, I see that we're probably going to lose this middle over here. This IS-3 is probably not going to be enough to hold those guys back. And we're sort of pushing around on this south area here, which always bodes poorly for your team. So it's something that we'll have to keep an eye on. So I'm going to start heading back. And so I'll back out of here so I keep my frontal armor faced towards there. The T-54 starts running away. And we see the Super Pershing coming through here, coming into here as we're leaving, and so that's something to keep an eye on. So we know that we're abandoning this area here, so what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to help these guys in the middle. And so what you want to be able to do is play through this middle area here, but it's going to be a sort of time-limited offer, because these guys eventually are going to figure out that we left, and they're going to counter push through that area right there. So we want to play through this middle here, and so what you want to be able to do is get over through the middle before these guys come up behind you and can shoot you in the rear.
It's a trap!
And so we'll see that our Super Pershing is taking fire from their guys who are now pushing somewhat aggressively. But now we're over the hill, so those guys can't shoot us in the rear. We're going to lose to this middle area here. See where our T-28 prototype is. We've pushed around through on this side, so those guys may be okay. It depends on how much pressure we can put through the middle here. Their guys actually end up pushing west through the F line instead of going back to help their guys on the south, which actually makes it easier for us to split and kill them.
It's a trap!
And so in the meantime, we know that there are 2 9s and an 8 that are on the north are eventually going to try to push through here. So it's a matter of being in a position where we can cover these guys here.
It's a trap!
It's like the second time I zero damaged that pattern. I had a lot of those this game. It happens. And so the pattern looks like he's headed out toward the north-northwest. We know that those other guys are still there, so it's only a matter of time. I'm not going to be able to save this IS-3, because if somebody's just going to poke over and be able to kill him. All I can try to do is just give him as much fire support as possible. And then what we're doing is we're basically waiting for our backup to get here. And we want to just be able to prevent them from taking the cap. So their pattern spotted our artillery, and so our guys are a little bit out of position, so we're going to want to go back and make sure that we can secure the cap so that they can't potentially fast cap. Because at this point, that's really the only chance that they have. We haven't seen the Roomba for a while, and the pattern could very easily have gone over here once he killed the artillery. We know the Conqueror is pretty much locked in position now. And so I don't want to go back to cap through this way, even though it would have been slightly faster, because it would have been really easy for pretty much anybody else to shoot me on the way there. Whereas going around through this way essentially guarantees that I'm going to be safe. So we see the Roomba is still back there, so that's good, because they could only potentially have one guy over here. And then we see that the pattern also went back somewhat inexplicably. I'm not exactly sure why either of those guys made that decision. They should have both either pushed forward or been in a position where they could have helped their Conqueror. But they're both still there, so our cap is secure, so I can drive back. And we've got guys that are starting to poke over here. And so the pattern is one shot, and the Roomba is one shot, and the pattern is driving right in front of the M103. And so I presume that he was going to die. But for some reason, the pattern is allowed to get away. Kind of wish I was up there to see exactly what happened there. So the pattern is running away. These tanks are too slow to actually catch up to him. I was actually just going to go cap because I thought that those guys were going to be done. But see how the pattern is going around this circuit over here. So we're going to go back and we're just basically going to cut off any escape route that he might have. And we see that he's sort of camping on the back of our cap area, which is fine. Unfortunately, he leaves the back part of his tank hanging out over this church, which basically allows us to take him out. So the important thing to note is, so you know, from this west spawn, particularly if you're in a faster tank, take this north area, you can be a little bit more aggressive than we were in general over here. Try to make your shots count better than I did against that Comet. You know, be in a position where you can push these guys back. Now, the interesting thing to note about sort of the tempo of this game is that we did not win the north. You know, we eventually lost the north. But the thing is that we backed them off of the north, and that allowed us to win through the middle, allowing us to drive up into this C7 area and get free shots on that E75, free shots on that KB5, allowed us to crush that middle, right? Because in that middle area we had an IS-3 and a T-71 initially, not exactly a formidable defense. And so we're able to crush those guys because the Patton was backed off, because the Roomba was backed off, because their Conquerors backed off. You know, we had an 8 and a 9 there. And so because of that, we were able to sort of win this side over here. And then when they came back through here, it was too late, right? So all we had to do was just turn around, and we were already then again in a position where we could sort of see those guys as they came in. And it was just about playing it smart, make sure that you don't get capped out, make sure that you guys don't have really easy escape avenues, and you can essentially run through them. So it's not an overwhelming statistical game. We did 2.5k damage, 800 damage on detect. But the important thing to note is the actual movements that we did. We went north, but we didn't overplay our hand on the north, right? We recognized that we're outgunned, but we also recognized that strategically they were playing it improperly. They weren't pressuring us. They were allowing us to pressure them on the north, and so they backed off. And what that allowed us to do is that allowed us to literally just run away, right? And running away, relocating, and putting pressure someplace else before they could respond is really what crushed that sort of middle area there and allowed us to turn the tide of the game. Anyhow, so I hope that was helpful for playing Fjords, and thanks for watching.